Hello everybody, welcome back to the shop. The next project off the pile is this kitchen chair that is broken. Not broken in the traditional sense, but broken in the sense that many of the glue joints, possibly all of them, have come loose. And on this side you can see this one here is broken. This one appears to be loose up here. This one's obviously failed, and that one has a visible crack in it. And the other side is similar. So let's get to it. To fully disassemble this chair, the rails are attached with through bolts that have these plugs on them. And these are made out of teak, and you can get them out. I'm going to try not to do that because it's a somewhat destructive operation. In fact, up here you can see this one. There's a little divot in it where years ago I used a coarse thread screw, like a drywall screw, and drove it in and pulled that plug out, kind of like a cork from a wine bottle. And I'm going to try not to have to do that. The seat might get in the way of some of the repairs. It's held by two screws up top here and a similar two down the bottom, and a lone bolt here going through the seat and attaching to it. And that can be removed pretty straightforward. Well, didn't expect that, but it's loose. This is the front of the chair. It's upside down. This is that front rail that I removed the screw from, and I'm rethinking my idea of not wanting to pull these plugs because, as it turns out, this front rail is very loose, and the bolts in there are going to have to be tightened up, so I'm going to have to get those out. So as the screw bottoms out against the bolt under it, it's gently lifting the plug. And there you have it. Well, I got mixed news. The left side assembly I managed to completely disassemble, and I made an attempt to keep the glue joints straight. And they will go on the left side as you're looking at the chair here. The right side is this assembly here, and I couldn't get these two joints loose. My best guess is one of the dowels is still holding strong and the other one has failed. So I think I'm going to have to take a different approach to reinforce these joints. I want to get some glue in there to try to get it as strong as I can. I see evidence that I've repaired this chair in the past, and I used wood glue. The challenge I have now is I'm going to use epoxy, but you want the epoxy to penetrate into the fibers of the wood, particularly the dowels and the dowel sockets. And to do that, I'm using an abrasive. One of the challenges I have is each of these dowels only came out on one side, so for every dowel joint, half of the joint is going to be an old joint. But that joint seems to have lasted quite a while, so I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that that's going to be good enough. So this is marketed as a 60 grit abrasive wheel on my Dremel tool, and it seems to do a pretty good job of cleaning the schmutz off of the dowels. I did try wetting them after I cleaned them with a little bit of water, and they seem to wet pretty well. I did my best to clean out the dowel holes with this wire brush. So on the left side of the chair here, these two joints have not failed, but the upper dowel in both of them is loose. So probably from chair racking. You don't know if the dowels come loose from the rail here or the style that it's sitting in, and I don't want to ruin a sound dowel joint to try to get these apart. I'm not sure what else I might ruin trying to do it. But I did many years ago buy this set of syringes for glue. And here's the tip and the plunger and the cartridge. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to line up and drill a hole on either side and try to inject a little bit of glue into the joint to hopefully add a little bit of strength. I used the smallest drill bit that I think I have. Maybe I should have looked for a smaller one. And the syringe fits in the hole without much trouble. I'm also thinking I'm going to put a small nail in each of these holes. These ones are the right length, but the gauge of the wire is a little light. I do have heavier brad nails, but these are 3/4 of an inch long. They fill the hole better, but they're a little too long, so I'm going to have to snip them a little shorter. I'm going to use my cutters here to cut the tip off of the nail. And with any luck, we should be able to drive that in. Okay, I got the 4 nails in. You can see a little bit of the shine. This will be the inside of the chair, so I don't think anyone will ever see it. But that should be a good strong joint. I'm not sure my glue in the syringe trick actually did much. Couldn't really get any glue in there. I just don't think there's any room. Though I did do my best. So hopefully that will prove to be a long-lasting strong joint. Time will tell. The rumor is when you try to glue teak, it's an oily wood, so the idea is you should try to get some of the oils off by hitting it with some acetone immediately before the glue up. I've also read that that's a bit of a wives' tale. I think people have tested joints that were cleaned with acetone compared to those that were not, and I seem to remember didn't seem to be very conclusive that the acetone trick works, but it's relatively easy to do. And at the very least, I'm helped getting some dust out of it, which I think will help the strength of the joint. I'm going to use 5-minute epoxy because the wood glue I used before seemed to do a pretty good job, and I generally think even 5-minute epoxy is stronger than wood glue. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just going to mix a little bit up because these joints are really tight. One downside about using epoxy is it's quite a bit messier, and I'm going to get a lot of squeeze out. Probably going to do this glue up in a few different steps. The real strength of this joint comes from the dowels, but I am adding a little bit of epoxy to the wood itself just because it can't hurt, but I don't want a huge amount of squeeze out, so I'm trying to be a little conscious of that. Well, I had to wail on this guy to get it to seat. Couldn't draw it with my clamp. And I'll check for square. And looking good that way. So once these set up, I'll glue the other side. That'll be a little trickier. Well, and here it is, clamped up from the final glue up. I have it on my table saw because it's the largest, flattest thing I have in my shop, and you definitely want the 4 legs to all come down planar. And I used 24-hour epoxy for the second glue up because there were a few more joints, and I figured it might be a little stronger, but more importantly give me significantly longer time to work with the various joints and get them all right where I wanted them. Well, the chair's back together, and I'm just taking a minute to pare away some of the epoxy squeeze out using a sharp chisel. It was clear, but once you disturb it, it turns white. Kind of easy to see here. Kind of looked like a little, there you go. Well, I don't seem to have a wood putty that's dark enough. And what I'm going to try to do is take some of this wood putty, which seems still usable, which is good. Take a little bit of it here. I'm going to try to darken it with some of this brown dye. Seen me use this before. This stuff is amazingly concentrated. I just got a little dab on the toothpick here. And see how successful we are. Well, it definitely darkened it. Stuff doesn't mix quite easily. This is a solvent-based wood putty, which I tend to favor because they last longer. They come in a can that seals pretty well, and you can always add a little bit more solvent to it to keep it lasting a little longer. And that's certainly darker. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you just don't want it to stick out. Well, it's not horrible. I think that'll clean up and look okay. That looks pretty good. I have this product. It says on it Teak oil. I don't know where I got it. I think I inherited it. If you read the can, it doesn't tell you anything that's in it other than petroleum distillates. And from what I understand, there really is no such thing as teak oil. It's not like they somehow get oil from a teak plant. I think this is just an oil that's okay for wood, largely suspended in a petroleum distillate to help carry it. Well, this stuff smells like paint thinner and has a decidedly brown tint to it, but it seems to do okay on this teak, masking some of the staining with the brown color, no doubt, adding a little bit of oil, and I'm just going to rub it on liberally. Give it a few minutes and then wipe it off. I'm not going to bore you with making you watch that. So a way to lighten stains on fabric is to hit it. Get a foam up in the fabric and then give it a quick wipe to pull some of the dirt out. Won't get it all out, but and I don't know how well that's showing, but a little bit of dirt came up. Of course, now it looks wet. I have to wait for it to dry to see how effective we were. Well, here it is finished up, looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. I sat in it. I'm 200 pounds, so I don't know what that is, 80, 90 kilograms, and it is solid. And I've oiled the wood, I've cleaned it up, and lightly removed some of the staining on the cushions, so it doesn't look brand new, but it looks in good shape, and it certainly fits with the rest of the kitchen set that it belongs to. So that's all I got for now. Hope you got something out of this. Maybe you've got some furniture in your own house that needs a little TLC, and hopefully this gave you some ideas on how to do it. As always, stay safe, take care, and catch you up on the next one.